going back and being able to watch the game in general, I think that, situationally there was some good, there was also some bad, and then just overall, you always want to be able to coach off the win. Like I said last night, I thought offensively there were spurts where we were better. We took some shots. We were available. We were able to take advantage of some of them and make them happen. But then there was also, that third quarter deal there, that whole, was getting into backing ourselves up and getting into a hole, and we just lost that field position. I thought that really hurt us there. Being able to come back, get stops when we needed to, and then score when we needed to push that game into overtime with Cairo making that kick was great. And then again, not being able to finish them in overtime once we got the ball back. I would like to see us improve in that area. So that's what we'll do. We got the players in here today because they're off tomorrow. So we're getting ready to go through the tape with them and teach that and figure out ways that we can get better.
Dan Wiederer.
Matt, have you had an opportunity to speak with Javon today, and do you have any more clarity on what it was that set him off to that extent?
Yeah, I did talk to him today. Again, obviously out of respect, I'm going to keep that between us and internally. But we did talk to him. I did talk to him, and just regardless of what went on, he knows and understands. He was apologetic and knows that that no matter what, you can't do what he did.
How do you handle internal discipline versus sort of also waiting for potential league discipline?
Yeah, I really don't know that answer yet. We'll get through that and figure out how that works. I haven't been through that before, so it's kind of new to me. So we'll just wait and see where that's at and collaborate together as an organization and figure out what's next.
Adam Johns.
Hey, Matt, during the game yesterday, Zach Miller, your former tight end, shared a post on Twitter, which was obvious support for Mitch Trubisky coming in the game. I'm not going to ask you if you thought about that, but when you have a situation like this in your locker room where you have a QB change and the QB that's come in is not playing as well as expected, how do you handle that amongst the players? Like, how do you prevent your current players from maybe thinking the same as Zach Miller right now?
Well, I love Zach. Zach's one, even though I wish I would have got to coach Zach. I think he would have done great in this offense, just the way he is and who he is as a person. And also, Zach is friends with Mitch, and I think that's awesome. I didn't see the tweet. I don't know anything about that, but I think we all understand that, we as a team, we watch tape, we watch video, and we do what's best we make the best decision based off of how we do as a team, not just one position. And so that's what we do. I appreciate everybody's opinions and thoughts, suggestions, but I think that there's a lot more to it right now than that.
Mark Potash.
Hey, Matt, how concerned are you with Nick's struggle to get into a groove 5 games in, or the offensive struggle to get, to get into a groove with him at quarterback after 5 games? And also, I was curious, the mobility that you lose with Nick from Mitch, are you paying a bigger price for that than anticipated? In other words, the sacks yesterday, are those sacks that Nick took that maybe Mitch would have avoided?
No, I would say this to you, Mark. I would say there was 1 sack out of, what was there, 5? Yeah. There was 1 sack, and it was the last sack of the game that he could have threw the ball away. The other ones, I would not put that I would not put that on him. I think there's different reasons, and that's just, where we're at. We understand that. And, we got to be able to have honest evaluations through all that. And again, they have a good defensive front. They did some good things there. And we're trying to, we have different pieces. The one, we had some luxury there early on in the season with consistency in the offensive line. And now what you're seeing is you're seeing some guys get injured, and it's new pieces, it's new voices, it's new. And so unfortunately we're seeing some of that go on, and guys are battling through stuff. And so I just think that for us, we got to make sure that we look at the whole big picture with this. And to answer your question, I would say the last one, I know that Nick would rather throw that ball away.
But just in general, as far as the Knicks, it was thought that he would, even if he struggled early, he would get in a groove as he got more comfortable with his team. That doesn't seem to be happening at least as quickly as you thought. Are you concerned about that after 5 games?
Well, I would go back to the entire offense. There's 11 people involved, and then there's coaching involved as well. And so we know what we see on tape. I'll say that we know what we see on tape, and we're able to evaluate what we see. And that's our job, is to watch what we see as coaches on tape. And then we evaluate what we see on tape and then make judges off of that.
JJ?
Matt, you got Cole involved a little more yesterday with the offense, but he only had that one target. When you went back and watched it, were there opportunities left out there for him, or was it a product of the game plan and the assignments on those throws?
No, I would say, yeah, we got him a little bit more involved yesterday. Again, each day you're going to see probably more and more of him. He's doing a good job. And sometimes you'll have games like that where you have more targets, and in other games you won't have as many based off of what they see with you as a player. So, or us as an offense. So I would love to see his arrow continue to go up, and I think it will.
Colleen Kane?
Hey, Matt, last night when you were talking about the delay of game penalty, you referenced Nick looking at his wristband. Can you explain your frustration with that a little bit more? Was it specific to that instance, or is it pointing to a larger issue?
No, we have a wrist. Well, actually, the headset went out last night, a couple series after that, and we have the wristband for different reasons. Whether it's certain hashes that we're on that makes the play easy to call, or if it's a unique formation or something. But we also have other plays on there that are very simple, and that just happened to be a play right there where we used the wristband for the call, and there was reasons for it, which I'm not going to get into.
Jason Leisure?
Matt, you cautioned us from the beginning about making too much of your history with Foles, because you guys had only been together 1 year. You hadn't called plays for him. Are you guys still with that issue yesterday, the delay game? You had the delay game coming out of the timeout in Carolina. Are you and him still working through some things and establishing cohesion and communication?
Yeah. So, it's what happens is, from the outside world, watching things, it can reflect that, and then, it can look like there's a communication issue and all that stuff. But I think for us, where we're at communication wise, when it comes to X's and O's, when it comes to calls we like and don't like, that's kind of a separate issue. This one is more, I think, this is more in the play, in the moment, just being able to get lined up in a certain position, get to a certain spot. And so I think that's where we want to make sure that, hey, all 11 players, Nick included, all the coaching staff, when we're running these plays in practice, are we repping these plays to where they know where to line up and how to line up? And then we roll with it. And yesterday was unfortunate. What's happened is there's been, I've told you this too, is because of those happening the first time, what you do as a staff and as coaches is you say, well, this can't happen anymore, so we got to fix this, and we got to change the way we're doing this. And we're doing that. And unfortunately, I probably could have called a timeout there to save 5 yards. I think that's something that you go back and forth on. It's more of a philosophical view. I generally tend to, like, when we do too, like to hold on to the timeouts in the second half, because they can be so valuable at the end of the game, especially when it's a close game. So it's unfortunate because you know that probably shouldn't have happened yesterday on third.
What did you want him to do there? As things were clearly not working and Charles Leno was yelling at him to hurry up, you want Nick to call a timeout? You want him just to snap it and try to figure something out, or what?
No, I wanted him to, what he did was fine in that situation. Just take the delay game. It's my decision to call a timeout or not. So what he did was totally fine. And we talked through that kind of stuff. Now, if that was in the first half, I would have called a timeout, So I think that's where it's like, okay, second half, you look back and you say, did you need that timeout at the end of the game, or did you not? What's unfortunate is, that I know our guys probably want to be able to execute that play.
Pat Finley?
Matt, you guys lead the league in penalties. And, yesterday you had a receiver throwing punches at people. How did you get to the point where being disciplined has been a problem? Because it wasn't a problem your first 2 years.
Sure. No, I think that's something that you have to understand as a head coach, no matter of the why part, right? That's the simple fact. The fact of the matter is that, like you said, if we are leading the league in penalties, and then you have something like that happened yesterday, especially, you never want that to happen ever from nobody on your team. And it's an emotional game and people can get into it. But again, just knowing who Javon Wims is as a person and a high character guy, that's the part that I thought was surprising. So yeah, I mean, until it gets changed, I have to be able to accept responsibility for it. And I have to be able to focus on the why part. And I need to hold myself and the coaching staff accountable because we're the ones that basically are the conduit to the players on how they're acting on game day, So until it stops, I got to take full responsibility for it.
2 more for Coach Kevin Fishbane.
Hey, Matt, what was your assessment of the sequence at the end of the first half after you called the timeout and then eventually they scored the touchdown? And I'm curious, after talking to Chuck, did you get a sense of kind of what the breakdowns were for you guys?
Yeah, so it was 3rd and 13. They had just got to a point where I knew that if it was going to be 3rd and short or 3rd and medium, I was not going to call timeout. But once they got backed up and we had a little bit of field position with where they were, I thought it was good. It was aggressive too, knowing that we're going to get the ball in the 3rd quarter. Let's get the ball one more time, try to go down, steal a field goal, and then get the ball at 3rd quarter. We got them to 3rd and 13, and they threw this screen to Kamara, and we were in drop 8. And so we have 8 defenders for a screen. And, they made a good play. He made a good run, got it to that 4th and 1, and which makes it a lot easier as a play caller to go for it. And they ended up getting that first and getting out of bounds. So, once that happens and you get to 4th and 1, you're always wishing that you didn't call the timeout. So, I thought that was a turning point as well.
Relax. Reset. Rejuvenate. Go to a link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
Robert, how did you guys digest the last 24 hours coming off, the way you played defensively last night?
I mean, at the end of the day, we got to be honest with ourselves. We didn't win the game. So that at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. We could have played a lot better, kept some points off the board. I'm sitting there thinking back, that the touchdown they scored right before halftime was crucial. So, we can't, to be a great defense, we can't give up plays like that. Even though the caliber of offense we was facing, to be a great defense, we can't give up stuff like that.
Pat Finley.
Robert, Akeem was saying that yesterday that he thought that your rush plan was actually pretty good and that it was pretty well executed, and Breeze was just really smart about getting the ball out of there. How do you judge a pass rush that didn't have a sack the day after?
Well, like you said, if he got to make his quick check downs, for 3-yard gains and stuff like that, that's a good down for us. Sometimes, we can, of course, let's be honest, we get stuck on getting sacks, but, pressures and, PBUs, whatever it takes to get off the field, that means we're doing a great job. Sometimes the numbers may not show, but I guess the effectiveness can still be, caused on the game. But, but again, as, I'm sure as we all have that personal pride, we want to see, more production out of all of us.
JJ.
Robert, kind of following up on that, how do you balance, feeling like you want to get those sacks versus going back and watching the film and trying to pick out where you did affect the quarterback? It maybe doesn't show up in the box score, but plays where you affected the pocket and led to, a drive ending or something like that?
I guess, as far as pressures or hits, I mean, I guess you can see how you could have maybe beat the old lineman quicker or whatever. And on the rushes that didn't work, you should be even harder on yourself on why they didn't work, regardless if it's 1, 2, or 3 man blocking you, you still got to figure out a way to win. So, I know I do for myself, I'm real, I guess, critical and, kind of hard upon myself, again, wanting to be perfect. But it's just, I keep saying that word, that pride thing. I'm sure this locker room has, but we just want to be the best we can be.
Hub.
Robert, now that we're a few weeks in, how do you feel, if at all, this different scheme, slightly different position is affecting you in run responsibilities? How do you feel that's going? And if it is at all, do you feel that it's impacting your pass rush at all?
No, I mean, it's just getting into, I guess, the swing of things. I guess, get, I guess, momentum, while I'm out there, whatever play call, got to make, be productive, be effective. Then, when I do get my chances to rush the passer, I got to take advantage. So at the end of the day, know what they brought me in here for, just trying to get the job done as best as I can. And like I said, at the end of the day, we're just trying to win games, no matter how it's done or who's out there. We're just trying to win games as the Bears.
Do you feel completely comfortable in it, though? I mean, when you're out there, maybe you're thinking, I got to get to the quarterback. You see it's a run play. Is the switch flipping for you right away? Is it slowed down for you enough?
No, it's pretty much slowed down. Again, like I said, I want to be that perfectionist, so I want to kind of know what everyone's doing so I can do my job even better. But I think I know my job pretty well. To get that done. But like I said, that perfectionist part, if I can figure out understand what everyone else is doing, I think that can help you be so much more of a better player.
Kevin Fishbane.
Hey, Robert, I'm curious with your current playing time. Ted Monachino talked about this is where you're at to get the most out of you. Are you comfortable where you're at playing time? Do you think you could get some more and still be as productive, or is this kind of a good sweet spot for you?
I mean, it's from the start, they've been kind of monitoring my snaps. And, it's been working. So, I mean, I'm not going to get down on ourselves because we had a rough week. But, at the end of the day, like I said, I know I haven't had the production, but, the pressures and hits been there. And, that's affecting the game. But overall, I know I'm sounding like, beating a dead horse, but the job is just to win. And like I said, we had this week was pretty rough. Even though we had a great opportunity to still win it, we just didn't get it done. So, an opportunity, Knox, we'll be ready for it.
Cam Ellis.
Robert, in your experience, when a guy on your team gets in a fight in a game, is that something that is dealt with within the players in the locker room, or do you guys sort of leave that to the coaching staff to deal with it after the game?
Well, there's nothing we can really do about it as players. I mean, we can talk to them and try to understand, but I mean, we're not the head coach, so we can't, and then plus the NFL has their own disciplinary action. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure our teammates doing all right. And that's not teammate, our brother. And at the end of the day, I didn't know what personally went on. But at the end of the day, you protect your brother no matter what. And we figured it out after that. But in the moments like those, you just protect your brother, and we'll handle the rest after that.
Couple more for Robert. Dan Wiederer.
Robert, you guys have lost 3 of 5 now. It seems like there's a frustrating pattern of the way these games have gone over the last month plus. How do you describe the level of urgency that you feel within the locker room now, and the level of, I guess, honesty within yourselves to acknowledge where the shortcomings are right now?
Well, there's always been a sense of urgency, knowing each week is important. each game is so critical. You don't know which game is going to be the determining game, to get you in the playoffs or, to miss it. So, each game is important week in and week out. But like think you just kind of said, it's definitely to a point, we can't, as I mentioned earlier, like the critical touchdown, the defense we gave up, right before halftime. Like we can't do stuff like that. So we have to be honest with ourselves, if we want to take that next step of, greatness that we, keep talking about. So, I can't talk about the offense. I don't play it, and I don't play a whole lot of special teams. So I can only talk about what I really do. So, offense objective is to score points, ours is to keep it off the board. If we did a better job keeping points off the board, then we talking about a different story here.
Last one, Stacey Dales.
Hey, Robert. Coach Nagy sent last night that he needs to rely upon the leaders right now, given the back-to-back losses, to step up within the team. How does that manifest on a Monday after a game like that? And do you have the proverbial players only meeting? How have you guys come together collectively to entice that leadership?
Well, I know one of my models is I'd say you got to look yourself in the mirror first, and be completely honest with yourself before you try to go have a conversation with someone else. So, I always start by looking myself in the mirror and realize how good I might have played or how terrible I might have played or, wherever in between I might have played. And I always start with myself. But as men in this locker room, we got to be able to critique ourselves, very critically and not get offended by that, because we all just want to see each other succeed anyway. So, I think that's just the same approach we're going to take. We're just brothers trying to make each other better and, build from there and have a little fun, not get discouraged by a little mishaps, little shortcomings these past couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Cairo, how would you describe the conditions yesterday and what was it like kind of trying to figure out the wind in the pregame process?
Yeah, it was tough. When it gusted, it got challenging. You could see the ball moving clearly, and sometimes it would go both ways. You just hit a ball down the middle and you would swipe left, swipe right. And I talked to Tabor, just kind of all you can do at that point, just hit a good ball and just trust that you've done your job. And if the wind takes it, yes, you're mad that you missed a kick, but it's, sometimes you just can't control in those situations. And as a game, I thought as the game went on, it started to die and it wasn't gusting as much. So it stayed more constant and manageable, but it was tough. It was challenging for sure.
Mark Potash.
Hey, Carol, how do you feel about the last second timeout that forces you to kick a second time, especially on a 51-yarder? And have you ever made the first one and missed the real one?
No, I've never had that happen. I've had to call a timeout before and I got to see the kick and I've made it every time. I think it helps you, especially when it was that windy and I felt that the wind had died down. So all I was concerned is if I had the range because with the wind, 52, 53, that direction max was my pregame range. So I knew it was stretching it if it was really windy, but since it died down, I got a chance to see the first one go in pretty well. I knew I could repeat it and luckily got the chance to do that. But I think it helps when the team does that. If I would call a timeout, I'd call it before the kicker got a chance to kick it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Finley.
Can you think of other games you've played in that have had conditions that bad to kick in?
No, I don't think so. I think that was wind-wise was the toughest. There's been colder games, and I think it was challenging, more challenging because the ball wasn't carrying. But wind-wise, there's a couple that got close, but with the gust yesterday, it made it really challenging. I think it was the top one in my career.
What does that do for your confidence that you can handle this Soldier Field thing?
It gives me a lot of confidence because you have a good game in those conditions, but at the same time, I know I got lucky that the wind died down. So if you had blown like it did sometimes at pregame, it could have been a tougher challenge and a tougher game plan too, where I'll be aiming and stuff. So uh, I'll leave it as no, I got lucky too, and handle it well as well.
Dan Wiederer.
Cairo, where were you playing that 51-yard kick when you went out for it? And were you aware of the confusion about the ball between the two kicks? The ref left his mic on and seemed like he was scrambling to get you guys the right ball for that one.
No, I wasn't aware of that. It's the first time I'm hearing, but I'm glad that they did that because it is a concern. Like, if a team calls a timeout early in my operation, I'm not going to try to force to kick that number one ball because we could not get it back, and those are usually our best balls. But their timeout came so late that I didn't have a chance to slow down and not kick it. So I kicked it, and I did think about it. I was like, I hope we get that ball back. But I didn't ask scales to check or anything. So I'm glad that the referees are making an effort to get that ball back because it's important to us. And I was just playing it down the middle. Because like I said, it just died down. I knew it just had to hit a clean ball, and it wasn't going to move. So I just aimed right down the middle.
Mark Grody.
Cairo, how excited was the excitable Chris Tabor after that kick, and then into the night even?
He gets really fired up. Like as I'm after the kickoff, like when I come in, he's got a chance to give me a high five, because right after the field goal, he's moved on to kick off already and giving the guys the look and stuff. But he leaves me alone like pretty much throughout the game through makes or misses. Like we talk a lot after the game, but during it, he gives me like a quick 2 seconds of his fired up emotions, and then we move on because we still have a game left to play.
Larry Mayer.
You really established yourself when you came into the league with the Chiefs, and then the last couple of years with the injuries. Did you ever doubt that you'd be able to get to the point back to where you were with the Chiefs in terms of solidifying a job in the NFL and being a consistent kicker?
I think in terms of health-wise, I had doubts just because how long it was taking for me to get to full strength, to a full health. Sometimes I doubted if I could get to where I finally got there today. But confidence-wise, that I could kick the same and all that, I never always believed in myself, that I could kick as well as I'm kicking now and once kicked in my prime. But it's just the health-wise that it took me way longer than I had ever heard of. But it's just part of the process.
How satisfying is it that you are actually performing at this high of a level right now?
It's awesome. It's still a dream to play in the NFL. And, even though I've done it for 7 seasons now, it doesn't get old. It's always one year after another is trying to prove yourself. And I love to compete. So it's last couple of years, I feel like I've just had to compete against myself because, trying to establish myself again. So that's kind of what I'm just most satisfied is getting to where I've been trying to get for the last couple of years and, dealing with everything. But I know there's still every game's another challenge. So I got to, keep attacking with the same focus mentality because I still want to keep playing here for a long time.
2 more for Cairo. Steve Leventhal.
So question for us non-kickers, perhaps you can explain and then I have another question, but when the wind is blowing like that, is there any advantage to a low trajectory, a high trajectory? How much does that come into play? So that's question number 1. And then question number 2 is, do you still follow any of the Brazilian soccer stars playing around the world?
I think it's more about the contact that you make with the ball. Like when you get a ball spinning, like RPMs of the ball, like spinning really fast, it cuts better. And so sometimes I think a high kick stays straighter, but maybe not, you can't get as much distance. And sometimes I feel like a low kick goes farther, but he can hook and fade easier. So it all depends on the strike of the ball. So that's kind of the number one, just focusing on the sweet spot and just, I don't try to manipulate much of the trajectory, just the sweet spot. And sometimes you just catch a little high on the ball, a little low, that makes it go high. But the RPMs, you got to spin the ball really fast to cut through winds. And yeah, I love soccer. Is still, I would say, number one passion to watch. I feel like I watch football just to watch kicks, the kickers that I follow. But in soccer, I actually enjoy watching the game and keeping up with the Brazilian players. I've got a chance to meet a couple of them. We went to London, so with Chelsea, I'm a Chelsea fan. So got a chance to meet Neymar a couple years ago at his foundation's auction. So it's still, like I said, I play FIFAs too, and I'm always signing the Brazilian players to my FIFA team. And it's still my number one passion, so I keep up with all that.
Last one, Dan.
Cairo, you told us a couple weeks ago that you felt like you were psychologically in a groove again. Can you describe kind of where that's at right now? And then also anything to heading back to Nashville this week?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when you're in a groove, you just react, you don't think. So we just kind of, we have the routine set, for the week. We'll kick Wednesdays and Fridays, and I do my preparation all the same. So it feels like I'm walking the same path week after week, and that way you just get more comfortable. So that's kind of what it feels like. So I feel like I'm thinking less and just trusting the process more, and things are aligning well. So I'm just focusing on the process from now on. And Nashville, I thought it was a great place to kick. It's a familiar stadium that I had in Tampa. I think it's the same design. So kind of, it's good grass and everything. So it's got some family coming to that game. They find all the fans. So it's going to be, I think, a good atmosphere to kick in, and something that I'm familiar with.
Thanks for your time, Cairo.
Thank you, guys.
It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest sports show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Riles and the Italian style. You sports is the only politic.
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
Come on, Marvelous!
It's the freshest radio show in town.
There you go, raise the roof.
Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
That's our boy the Q, 17th letter in the alphabet, Quentin Dips. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're broadcasting live from the illustrious studios of WCPT 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago. We're rocking it on the lakefront, shaking the lake. Well, we're trying to shake the lake. The Chicago Bears are playing host to Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints over at Soldier Field, and I just got it from our esteemed producer, Devin Tingle. The Bears have just scored. They were trailing 23-13, but they just scored to narrow the gap pending the
PAT.
It was good.
Down by 3 with under 5 minutes to go in the contest, ladies and gentlemen. And we know you all are watching the football game, but we want you to keep the volume down on the channel, on the TV, and we want you to keep the volume up on your radio dial and or on Facebook streaming live. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. It is the fastest hour in sports conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a show in store for you. And of course, we want to welcome the one, the only. Ladies and gentlemen, he's not over at Wrigley Field in the press box over there. He's not in the stands. He's not in the bleachers. He's not at U.S. Cellular, despite the fact we will be talking a little bit about the Chicago White Sox. But ladies and gentlemen, he's in studio at WCPT 820 AM. He's known as the Marvelous One. He's Dan Marver. What's up, Marver?
Hi,
How
Jerry.
are you?
I'm great. I think a guaranteed rate in Wrigley, you might be able to vote now. A lot of these places, United Center.
Yeah.
So get out there and vote, number one. And number two, like we were talking about the Bears, this guy almost got 100 yards rushing today. My God. they may pull us out yet. The 3 minutes and 32 seconds to go, so we'll see what happens. But the baseball season ended kind of interestingly in the COVID world with Justin Turner ending up getting infected in the middle of the game. They announced it, so it's a crazy year all the way around.
It is. It certainly has been a crazy year, no question about it. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers and Dave Roberts on winning the World Series, the first time in 32 years? 1988, of course, the Kirk Gibson homer that sparked everything in the Game 1 winner back in 1988. But congratulations to Magic Johnson and the entire family of the Los Angeles Dodgers on winning the World Series title over the Tampa Bay Rays. We'll get an opportunity to talk to USA Today's Major League Baseball writer and columnist Bob Nightingale. He is a friend of the program because, hey, you know what? Jerry Reinsdorf for the Chicago White Sox announced that Tony La Russa, 76-year-old Tony La Russa, is your manager for your Chicago White Sox. And as they say, the crowd was stunned, ladies and gentlemen. The crowd was stunned. Marvelous.
Yeah, trying to make up for a mistake he made.
Yeah, but is it a mistake for him to try to make up a mistake?
I don't know. I mean, La Russa actually, he obviously has the creds to do the job. I just thought that maybe he wouldn't be able to relate to the youngsters, but we'll see what happens. And in any event, this is the age of the 70-pluses being leaders. So let's do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's certainly do it. And it is the age of the 70-plus. It's the age, it's the age of the 70-plus-year-old man, so to speak, because, this race, and ladies and gentlemen, on a serious, we were always serious here. Real sports, real talk, just plain real. Check us out on the RewindSports60.com. Of course, on Facebook Live. We also stream on YouTube, so we want you to definitely check out the Rewind Sports 60. But this is a very, very serious time in our history as far as this country is concerned. And on Tuesday, if you haven't already cast your vote, you have to be responsible, regardless of whichever decision you make, whichever way you vote. You have to be responsible and get your vote in on Tuesday.
And if you don't, you have nothing to complain about.
Well, that's exactly right. There's nothing for you to complain about. But, a lot of people in the past, especially in the black community, to say, my vote don't count, man. It don't count, man. They're just going to do what they're going to do. Yeah. Well, the reason they get a chance to do what they want to do is the fact that you didn't vote and you haven't voted. And so you can't complain, like Marvelous said, about what's going on, what your conditions are, if you don't get out and exercise your right to vote.
It is interesting, though. The last couple elections, it's like there are a few states that seem to make the difference: North Carolina, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Texas, Florida. So it's almost like your vote maybe means more if you live in those states, as it turns out.
Well, for this race that's coming up, these elections that are coming up, the key major states, obviously, is Pennsylvania, it's Florida, it's Texas, it's Georgia, it's even Ohio, Wisconsin. I think it was a swing state, but regarding the numbers and COVID-19, I think that state, our neighbors up north, I think they're swinging in the other direction. But those are typically the key states that will decide the presidency. And from records and from what the pundits are saying on both the outlets, and I educate myself, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not as astute as some of my colleagues are concerned as far as politics are concerned. But so I do try to check out and take in CNN, MSNBC, Fox News because I want to get an overall perspective on the parties, the candidates, and the position. And the pundits are saying Florida, obviously, that's a big one. And who I consider the greatest president of all time, president number 44, that of course Barack Obama, when he won, I mean, he took Florida. And all the presidents in the past, you win Florida, you pretty much got it signed, sealed, and delivered. So this is going to be very, very interesting to see how everything unfolds. And we have, close to 80 million people, Marvelous, who've already cast their vote?
Yeah, it's incredible. And some of it has to do with the pandemic, and a lot of folks are able to vote early, unfortunately, that may have too much free time on their hands, shall we say. And also the great interest in it, as divided as everything is, makes it so that people really want to have their voices heard.
Yeah, I mean, people, you should have your voices heard, and this is your opportunity. This is your chance to definitely make sure that it is heard. And I commend all of you, and congratulations to those of you who've already cast. I've voted already, the mail-in vote. Congratulations to you, Marvelous. Thank you for casting your vote and being a responsible American, a responsible citizen, and the greatest country in the world. That, of course, the United States of America. And speaking of the greatest president of all time, you would agree, wouldn't you, Marvelous?
The greatest president of all time?
Of all time here in the United States.
Of all time?
Of all time.
Okay, well, I don't.
I mean, you agree with me, don't you?
I mean, I don't think it was James Polk.
No, of course it wasn't. It's number 44.
Okay,
you know who he is.
There you go.
Yeah, it was this guy. No, you cut it off too soon. You cut it off too soon. But if you didn't hear it, check it out again, the sounder. That's what I do. That is what the greatest president of all time, President Barack Obama, said in the state of that state up north that we don't really talk about. But he made a three-pointer at a gym up there. And as he was walking out, as you heard in the background, his staff and even Biden, who was in attendance, he couldn't believe it. And, of course, the greatest president of all time that our country's ever seen, number 44, President Barack Obama, he said, that's what I do. That's what I do. Marvelous. He kind of reminded me of myself.
Really?
Yeah. He's a left-hander. I'm a left-hander. I got the jumper from the baseline. I swish it just like that. He reminded me of me.
Well, there you go. You got a lot in common.
Well, we got some things in common. I don't know if we have a lot in common. He was the president.
I think he made more income.
His income bracket is a lot higher than mine. There's no question about it. Our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. If you want to jump in, if you have any comments you want to make regarding anything in the world of sports, and of course the Bears are trying to hold on to get their sixth victory in this halfway through this NFL season. They're taking on Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints over there on the lakefront, 23-20.
2-minute warning.
2-minute warning. We're going to keep you up to speed, and as soon as the game is over, we'll break down all the stats as far as the game is concerned, and hopefully before we're out of here, the fastest hour in sports conversation, we'll get a chance to hear from your head coach of the Chicago Bears, that of course, Matt Nagy, and his presser, and hopefully it is for a Bears victory, and I wish I had an opportunity to talk to Matt Nagy before we go to our first guest, Bob Nightingale. You love the guy, he's fantastic, but I wish I had an opportunity to talk to Matt Nagy, and I would ask him the question. I think it was about the 4:43 mark in the first period of action, the first quarter of action in this football game, where he actually pulled Nick Foles and he put in Mitchell Trubisky.
One carry for 3 yards.
Why?
I thought that maybe the helmet came off. I didn't hear any other explanation.
And kudos to Joe Buck and, of course, Troy Aikman doing the color and the play-by-play, and, of course, Aaron Andrews on the sideline. But none of them, they didn't. You said maybe it was a helmet malfunction with Nick Foles. They didn't say anything about it. I'm scratching my head. Why are they trotting this guy out here? No, we don't. Listen, Nagy, and this is what I would ask. I go, listen, Matt. We do love you here in Chicago. Your play calling is a little suspect, a little skeptical, but the one thing you don't have to do It's childish trickery stuff. Don't bring Mitchell Trubisky in for. You're not doing anything to help yourself.
The other thing I thought is they're trying to match Taysom Hill, which is what the New Orleans does.
They're two different. Believe me.
Yeah.
They're like night and day when you look at those two.
Yeah.
When you look at Hill for the Saints and you look at our Trubisky, they're night and day. They're night and day, and it makes sense. It makes sense from New Orleans' perspective. And Sean Payton, he has a track record. So it makes sense when he's going to do something like that. As far as Matt Nagy is concerned, I don't think so. I don't think so. But before we get an opportunity to talk more about the Chicago Bears, Bruce Heron, our regular Sunday contributor to break down the Bear games, will be joining us again at the conclusion of this game. And hopefully the Bears can hold on to improve to 6-2 and take total control of the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers, what a game.
Yeah, well,
the Minnesota Vikings.
Now it's funny. I thought that maybe we'd get a break after Tennessee playing Minnesota. It's not going to be so easy either.
Not at all. Not at all. But well, we'll get a chance hopefully to talk a little bit more regarding the Bears and their progress. Again, hopefully they'll get a victory. Bruce Heron will be joining us, the former linebacker, number 51 in your program, number 1 in our hearts. But before we do that, we'll get a chance to go out west and bring in a friend of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard him on the Rewind Sports 60 many a times, and he's joining us on this Sunday, this Bear Sunday. He writes for the USA Today as the writer, columnist, Major League Baseball. He's on our TR60 hotline. Welcome to the program again. He's Bob Nightingale. Bob, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, thanks.
Hey, man, thank you so very much for taking some time out on this Sunday, this football Sunday, to join us. But you know what? And you've been fantastic. And we actually, we talked with you when it all unfolded as far as Jerry Reinsdorf putting Tony La Russa's name out there as a candidate to become the next White Sox manager, replacing Ricky Renteria, and many people, definitely here in Chicago, and a lot of my colleagues, they thought it was just a joke. And of course, around the nation, many people simply couldn't believe it for the simple fact that we know, Tony La Russa, 76 years of age, and we thought, and you can't do that. No, Rick Hahn said we're going for an experienced guy. We're going for a guy that these players can relate to and who understands today's game. And this is the direction we're going. We're going from step A to step B, and we're ready to win the championship. And hey, man, you put it out there. You stuck to your guns. You said it was going to happen, and it certainly did this past week. How did you feel? Let me ask you that. I got to ask you how you feel, because, it's very difficult, especially in this industry, to be out somewhat on an island by yourself, and everyone is taking shots at you left and right, not believing your work is impeccable. There's no question about it. But people taking shots at you and saying, hey, this guy is crazy, or he's just leaking out some information just to keep people off track or whatever. How did you feel once the announcement was officially made by the Chicago White Sox this past week in Rick Hahn?
Well, I was confident it was going to happen. And the only way it wasn't going to happen is if Tony La Russa turned it down. He was their guy all along. And then, he accepted the deal on Monday. But the World Series was still going on. They didn't want to, upend that. So, yeah, he was the guy. And once he showed interest that he was going to do it, there was no second choice. If there was going to be a second choice, if he turned it down, it would be Bruce Bochy, who resigned a year ago from the San Francisco Giants, who's actually 6 years old. But it was never going to be A.J. Hinch. Bochy would have been the second choice.
Wow, that's it. That's very, very interesting. And of course, AJ was just signed with the Detroit Tigers, who are in the division with the White Sox. So that's going to be a very, very interesting dynamic as far as the next 3 years are concerned regarding both the Tigers and the Chicago White Sox. Because basically, and the Sox were very, very surprising, albeit as a shortened season, 60-game season due to the pandemic. It's going to come down if everything gets back to some sort of normalcy in the next year or so, to watch how these two clubs progress and develop, because it's basically you have an old school manager in La Russa, which I love, and you got the new school philosophy in AJ, and it's going to be interesting to see which one prevails. I'm an old school guy, Bob, so I'm pulling for the old school guys.
Well, you and I can manage the White Sox. We're going to have a better record than the Tigers are. The Tigers are terrible. It's going to be years. It's a bad job. And, A.J. Hinch would have loved to get in the White Sox. But hey, he was spearheaded the cheating scandal. People wondered if he and Alex Cora would ever manage again. A lot of people are upset by this. Why did AJ Hinch only had a 60-game suspension, and then boom, he gets a manager job? And there's free agents. There aren't anyone free agents out there unemployed, but he is employed. So there's going to be some repercussions. I mean, I don't think the White Sox wanted a part of it, in the sense where here's a team that people love. You really want to see this team booed on the road because your manager, headed the cheating scandal. Say if the White Sox won the World Series, are people going to say, yeah, but they must have been cheating because that's what happened in 2017 when he was a manager. I don't think they wanted all the extra stuff that went along with that.
But it's a good point. But let me ask this question, though. And we're on with Bob Nightingale, USA Today, Major League Baseball writer, columnist, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. Did you, and you followed, obviously, the playoffs and the World Series, and again, congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers on winning the championship finally. But did you sense any of that from a national perspective as far as the Houston Astros were concerned, that they received? I know some of the media types and former players kind of took a stab at them here and there. But did you get that perspective as far as the fan base was concerned about the Houston Astros being in the playoffs and contending to possibly get to the World Series for another title, despite the cloud that's been hanging over that organization?
Oh, absolutely. People were openly rooting against the Houston Astros. People, were upset, yelling stuff, even at Dusty Baker. Dusty had nothing to do with it. He wasn't managing, in 2017, but yet, he was part of that franchise now. Just in the case with the Detroit Tigers, they're not going to be well liked, when they're on the road, for that same reason. And you saw what Dusty Baker did, stuck his old school approach, and hung with his starters long. Zach Greinke, he hung in with him instead of going to his bullpen. It paid off. When a young manager like Kevin Cash, and he's going to win Manager of the Year, went by the book, was all orchestrated, and, went down to one of the worst managerial decisions in World Series history and cost them a potential World Series.
Hey, Bob, this is Dan here. Going back to the World Series, what did you think about Justin Turner getting sick and coming back on the field after the game? That's one thing. And the other thing I was going to ask you about, I thought that La Russa might bring Dave Duncan back.
Yeah, I think he talked to Dave Duncan about it, but Dave's not enough good enough health as far as just physical wise. I'm sure he'll pick his brain and stuff like that. But Dave's going to stay, retired. Certainly if they had Hall of Famer coaches, he'd be in that. And the Turner part, it just was not smart at all. Stupid, really, for Turner to go back and celebrate with his teammates and stuff like that. I understand why he wanted to do it. I understand why the teammates weren't going to stop him. But someone should have stopped him. I mean, besides players, there's kids. There's kids on the field, the family members, or the pregnant wife on the field. So you just can't take that chance.
Yeah, if that security was going to take care of it, but they didn't.
Well, they tried from what the reports indicated, and he was able to get around them, which is again, it is somewhat unfortunate and somewhat of a selfish act. But on the flip side, I mean, you can kind of understand it. Again, this franchise had won in 32 years. He was a key player in this growth and the fact that they've made it and they finally got over the hump to win the World Series. You can understand he wanted to be a part of that. Hopefully everyone's okay and everything is fine. But from his perspective, he's like, this could be a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. And I want to spend that with my teammates, my brothers, that we all got here together. So I kind of understand his perspective, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand the emotional part, but you just have to be smart about it. He could have celebrated inside the clubhouse with those teammates, and nobody would have seen anything or said anything. It would have kept quiet. Of course, the thing is now, no matter how many people get infected, from Turner's actions, we'll never know.
Yeah.
That will never be made public. So, hopefully nobody does, but it's a little worrisome. I mean, obviously he and his wife had to take a separate flight, a private flight, away from the teammates. But he should have been away from them right now. But nothing security could do. It's not like tase the guy or something like that.
Yeah.
Don't defied orders.
Hey man, there was a real big uproar. I thought there was an earthquake here in the city of Chicago when it was announced that Tony La Russa was the new Sox skipper. That's because the Sox fan base, half of the fans were satisfied, the other half were not satisfied. Again, I'm an old school guy, and I remember Tony La Russa's first go around here in the 80s. I was very supportive of I was a vendor, as a matter of fact, back in 83, the winning ugly team, the White Sox. And they I think the Cubs piggyback after that, because in 84, you had the big run for the Northsiders. But I think a lot of old school guys, old school Chicagoans, they understand Tony La Russa, they understand the game, and they say, hey, you know what? This guy knows it. He may be 76 years of age, but he's won, and we deserved the championship back in the day. It didn't happen, so, maybe this is an opportunity. But I think the young schoolers, the young kids are like, either they were young or they weren't even born when Tony La Russa was in his first stint here in Chicago, and they're really irate. And I understand that as well. I guess my question to you is, Bob, is that, to me, baseball is baseball. And I understand you have to, tweak it here, fine-tune it there. But at the end of the day, baseball is baseball. Do you see that Jerry Reinsdorf is saying, you know what? This guy is a baseball mind. And the talent that we have, if we get some extra pieces, that we can win this championship, and we can win maybe multiple championships. Whereas the old school people, the new school guys are like analytics. And we saw what happened in the World Series. Does it matter, in your opinion, from you covering the game, old school versus new school's perspective? How do you see it?
As long as you win. I mean, obviously, when Tony La Russa walks in a room, he's got everybody's respect. And there's only two guys in history, that remember two guys in history that won more games than Tony La Russa. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. He took three teams to World Series championships. People say, "Oh, how can you relate to guys, flipping a bat and showing emotion?" It's the same guy that managed Ricky Henderson. He had Reggie Jackson. He had the Bash brothers. Dennis Eckersley pump his fists. This guy invented the bullpen usage. That's what got Ricky Rennery fired with the mismanagement of the bullpen. So as far as credentials, you're not going to do any better. And when this guy left the playing field as manager, it's not like he went back home and just sat on the couch and ate potato chips. I mean, he was running the entire Arizona Diamondbacks front office. Was a vice president with the Red Sox when they won the World Series 2 years ago. It was with Joe Madden with the Angels. So, the gauge is just a number.
Does this affect, how did this affect? Because a lot of people are also saying that Jerry Reinsdorf, it is his baseball team. He is the owner. Some people felt, hey, he owed Tony La Russa, he owed him this opportunity because of what happened back in 86. But do you think this decision and move by the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, sort of undermined, because there is rufflings from what we understand in the front office and in the organization, that some people were surprised and kind of dumbfounded by the decision? Did this somehow, the decision, undermine Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams because it appears they wanted to go in a different direction?
I don't believe that. I mean, if somebody's really upset by it, they could quit. I didn't see anybody turn in the resignation. I mean, if Jerry Reinsdorf wanted us three to be the GM, we'd be the GM. So he's one who writes the checks. But you're still talking about a Hall of Fame guy and a guy who didn't cheat to win his only World Series. So there's a big difference. And Rick Hahn used to be a player agent, and he had A.J. Hinch as a player. So they go way back. But there's a lot of things on the Houston Astros and A.J. Hinch. There's books coming out. There's documentaries. We saw what happened last year when Carlos Beltran was involved in the cheating scandal, and he got fired before he managed a game. What if more stuff comes out now with Hinch? So. No, I mean, it's like how can you go against the decision to hire a guy who's in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and Bob, when we have another season again, it's it's going to be this. The Twins and the Indians are going to be the competition. They both made the playoffs, obviously. Forget about the Tigers and the Royals, obviously, just for the division. So they really have a good chance to be a playoff team for time to come.
Yeah, I mean the Twins aren't going away. We'll see what Cleveland does with Francisco Lindor. If they trade him away, that means they're not really going for it, or certainly hurt their chances. And like I said, Tigers are where the White Sox were maybe about 3 years ago. Far away from contending. So it's a team built to win now, and we'll see if they have some free agents along with it, to bolster that pitching staff. Because that pitching's kind of let them down, down the stretch. Certainly they have the offense.
Dude, well, it's free agents in Major League Baseball now. Today is the first day, and there are a lot of names that are out there. Do you see the Sox? First of all, Bob, where do you see a need for this team? Gio Gonzalez, I honestly thought he was going to be part of the future as far as this pitching staff was concerned for the White Sox, but that didn't happen. How do you see Tony La Russa, Jerry Reinsdorf, Rick Hahn, and Kenny Williams working together to try to build this team up to championship caliber? As you said, you and I and Marvelous, we could have managed this team this past year, and had, I think if I had been in the dugout there, they probably would have gotten to the World Series, because I would have made some different moves than what Ricky Renteria made. But that's water under the bridge so far, as of now. But what moves do you think the Sox need to make moving forward to get them to where Jerry wants them to be?
Well, yeah, they didn't have the pitching depth to go into the World Series. It just wasn't going to happen. So they need some more starters. They could use a guy like Charlie Moore. Remember, he was teammates in Houston when they won the World Series. So I think he's a perfect guy. It's not going to cost much money either. I give him a 1 year, 2 year deal. Got to get it DH. Be kind of fun to take Nelson Cruz away, but I would think a perfect guy would be Michael Brantley, also from the Astros, who's a free agent. So they're not far away. Just need some more pitching, and obviously, you're going to have some more young guys step up and help out. Guys, young pitcher who opted out, Kopech, he'll be around all next season. So they should be in good shape. Certainly they'll be favored to win the division.
Hey, let me ask you real quick, and we do appreciate your time again joining us on this Sunday to Rewind Sports 60s. I can't remember who mentioned this, who told me, and the Cubs haven't they didn't pick up the option for John Lester, so he's out on the market. Would it be too far-fetched for the White Sox to say, hey, you know what? Let's give him a 1 year deal, see if he can come over here and help us out?
It might be tough. I mean, in the sense where, he got hit around, pretty good last year in the National League. In American League, obviously, a lot more deeper, more talented offenses. Mm-hmm. So I think he would have a time, switch over to the American League.
Yeah.
I would think a Charlie Morton would certainly make more sense, or someone that used to the American League, pitching lifestyle.
And the only reason I forget who brought it up to me, but the only reason I bring it up is the fact that the one thing that I hate being a Chicagoan, because I love both baseball teams, both the Cubs and the Sox, and with them both making the postseason, I was hoping that they would go deep into the postseason, and who knows, playing the World Series. Crosstown Collective, but it didn't happen. But the one thing what happens in this city between the two ball clubs, they always, for some reason, seem to swap players. Whether it's Sammy going over from the Sox to the Cubs, or, Ricky Renteria coming over from the Cubs to the Sox. I've always hated that. And hence, that's why I asked the question about John Lester. Hey, man, listen, thank you so very much for taking some your precious time on this Sunday to spend with us to get us up to speed as far as the Sox are concerned, and Tony La Russa. And, we'll continue to pick your brain, man. Keep up the great work, and we love what you do. Thank you so very much.
All right, my pleasure. Take care, guys.
Sounds good. That's Bob Nightingale of USA Today, the writer, columnist, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. And if you are watching a Bear game and you're listening to the fastest hour in sports conversation here in the greatest city in the world, that, of course, Chicago. Marvelous. What's going on with the Bears?
Well, Cairo Santos was able to hit a 51-yard field goal in these weather conditions with to tie the game, and now it's in overtime with 13 seconds left. So the Bears were able to come back and tie it, which looked pretty dismal when they were down by 10 with just a few minutes left. But they came back, tied the game. Now we're in overtime with about 9:23 to go in the overtime session. So hopefully they'll be able to pull this out. It'll be remarkable.
Wow, it is remarkable. And you got to take your hat off and say kudos to the Bears defense because they have kept this team in this game. They have kept this team in the game, and they're playing lights out. And for the Bears, good. They gave up 20 unanswered points to the Saints coming out of the locker room, right. And then they fought back to get back into this football game.
Indeed. Yeah, so, that's keep watching, but turn down the sound.
Well, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up to you. If you guys want to jump in and talk with us while we're waiting for the conclusion of the Bear game, hopefully we get an opportunity to, well, I don't know if we're going to get any Matt Nagy press conference because time is running down, but I wanted to ask you, Marvelous, as well as those of you who are listening to the show or you got us on your computer. Let me say this first of all. It's 2020. It's the first day of November. We're heading in 2021, okay? Listen to me. And Marvelous, I love you.
I love you too.
And of course, the man on the street, Marty B, because you guys are old school guys, and you have your transistor radio.
Not that old.
For you you're old school guys. Yeah. I'm an old school guy. Yeah. But for you youngsters out there, where's your transistor? Let me show you on it. Because nowadays we got the smartphone, so you can get the app and do all of that stuff.
Not wireless.
But you guys, show it. Put it up to the camera, man, right there.
Not wireless.
Yeah, he's got the transistor radio. That it's invaluable. It's invaluable. But we're living in 20.
I know. I used to put one on my bike handle.
There you go, on your Schwinn bicycle.
Yeah, right.
With the 60 bar in the back, right?
Kidding, yeah.
And I want to say this to all of you out there because I know you're watching a Bear game, but you should have us on your computer, on your laptop, or whatever the case may be, watching the stream on Facebook. 2020. I have the Hall of Fame room. You have multiple television monitors, but you also have the computer going. You also have the smartphone going. So there's no excuse. There's no reason. None. Why you can't watch the game with the volume down, of course, but also tapped into the Rewind Sports 60 with yours truly, Jerry Riles, and of course the marvelous one, Dan Marver. But before we go to Bruce Heron, who's on our TR60 hotline to talk a little bit about this Bear game, and hopefully we'll have a Bear victory, did you have a chance to see this play?
Dumps it underneath to Shameen Jones. They want a little lateral play here for Bo Melton. They'll keep it hot for Vedral. Once more. Hey, big fella. Raekwon O'Neal, take this. Oh, my goodness. Watch out. Still no whistle. Shameen Jones cuts it back inside. He's just tripped up. Ball still live. Vedral still keeps it going. Watch out. There are no whistles. There are no flags. This counts.
That was unbelievable. Do you know what that was? I know it sounded like a lot of noise, which it was.
It was like the band, the California the band.
It's like Cal Stanford game, and John Elway, and Chico Rivera, and God bless him, he's healthy, he's fine, he's out of the hospital. But that was Cal Stanford game. Yeah. John Elway, Chico Rivera, and of course, we've all seen it. And you see the marching band coming out, and it was an upset victory. John Elway couldn't believe it in Stanford, Cal with the upset. But that was the Rutgers-Indiana game.
Yep.
That was the Rutgers-Indiana game. And that was crazy It was crazy. It was 2 minutes left in the game, I believe, and the Rutgers were down. And you got to Google this, and you got to take a look at it. It was better than the Cal Stanford game. Well, almost better. The Cal Stanford game was an upset, a victory. But this one, the touchdown by Rutgers was called back because they said it was an illegal forward pass.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it. Did you?
Well, I'm looking at it again now. There was one that was pretty close. That must have been the one, but most of them were backwards. But there was one that was sort of sideways. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of, I understand that, but because these kids put on such an effort, and I love the offensive lineman who grabbed it and he kind of like just threw it over his head. It was hilarious, but it's unbelievable that they pulled this thing off and they were able to score. But unfortunately, the officials say, "Hey, no score because it was a illegal forward pass." But you guys got to Google it. Hey, we're joined by Bruce Herron, number 51 in the program, number 1 in our hearts on our TR60 hotline. Bruce, did you get an opportunity to see that play, Indiana and Rutgers, that happened on Saturday, where they did a bunch of passes behind?
My favorite one is when the guy threw it over his head.
Yeah, it was hilarious. That's the lineman. He threw it over his head. Did you get a chance to see that, Bruce?
No, I did not.
It's hilarious. You got to Google it. Rutgers, Indiana. They called it back. Rutgers. It was unbelievable. It was similar to the Cal Stanford game that happened. What was that, in '86 or whatever? It was hilarious. It was hilarious. But they called it back because
82 actually.
82. But they called it back because of illegal forward pass. But I love the fact that these kids had the determination, the energy, and the creativeness to try to pull this thing off and actually score a touchdown to get back into the football game. But unfortunately, they didn't make it happen. Bruce, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Hey, man, we're hanging in there. We were hoping for a Bear victory before we got out of here, but it looks like the game is in overtime, and they've come back after giving up 20 unanswered points in the second half to the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees, and now we're in OT, and we're hoping that the Bears can hang on and go to 6-2, man. What do you think?
Oh, man, I tell you what, this has been a real struggle. I mean, after we played, after the way we played against the Rams, and then showing up today offensively, it's just painful to watch, man. It's just, I just wanted to hurry up and get over with. I mean, we got the ball now. We get to drive down the field and kick a field goal, but offensively, man, it's just been painful.
Well, they've cracked the 20-point threshold, at least. That was my bar for winning.
Look at him now. I'm watching this crap now. He just gets sacked. I mean, he has no mobility whatsoever.
Who, Foles?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's thrown an interception in 7 straight games, they were saying, too, so that's no badge of honor.
So, Bruce, I don't know. I'm sure you've been watching it since the kickoff. In the first quarter of action, I think at the 4:43 mark, Matt Nagy pulled Nick Foles for one play and brought in Mitchell Trubisky to run a play around to the left side. I'm yelling at my television monitor saying, "No, I don't want this. No, just stick to the program." What did you think of that move by Matt Nagy?
Oh, well, I know he was probably trying to do something different and, get some kind of spark. Oh, did he catch it? Yes, he did.
Okay.
He caught it.
Okay, can you give us a play-by-play?
But
I'm sorry. You know what? I'm
Robinson,
turn the damn thing off while I'm talking.
I know, pass the Robinson.
No, just turn the volume down. Turn the volume down.
The volume is down.
Okay.
Okay. That particular play, I think that Nagy was trying to just trying to spark your team and do something different. Although it really didn't help. We just don't have a quarterback, man. It's just, and you know what? In our offensive line, oh my God!
Yeah,
I'm telling you, our offensive line, they need to do a rebuild on this offense. I know they've got some injuries now, but even before the injuries, man, they just wouldn't. They're not taking care of business.
You know what? And we're on with the great Bruce Herron, number 51 of the former linebacker for your Chicago Bears on our TR60 hotline. Jared Payton, I follow him on Twitter, and he when Massey went down with the injury, and then was it Spriggs? I think Jason Spriggs suffered an injury, who replaced Robin Massey. JP, Jared Payton was like, hey, man, this offensive line just simply can't get a break. And I responded to him by saying, hey, man, this offensive line, unfortunately, we're just not good. We're just not good. And the bad thing about it is, and I don't like to beat up on anybody. I don't like to beat up on Ryan Pace, but when it's glaring you in the eye and you see that there were just bad decisions made, you got to point it out. And the fact that I think Cody Whitehair got a contract. I think Robert Massey got a contract. I think Charles Leno Jr. got a contract. I think half the offensive line got contracts, man. And they are, in my opinion, just my humble opinion, and you played the sport, Bruce. They're just not as good as the others. They're a tad below the other linemen in the National Football League, and to me, it's a reflection of that. It shows. What's your perspective, having played the game?
Yeah, the offensive line they're not athletic. I mean, they've got a bunch of big guys. They're just not athletic. Come on, Nick Foles. And I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
It's getting ugly about a minute. Our offensive line, they're just not athletic. They're not a really physical offensive team. And that's what's beating us. That's what's beating us offense. We've got some really good players at the skill level. We don't have a mobile quarterback, and the one mobile quarterback we have, he's just not accurate with his passing.
Mm-hmm.
He's just, and so we need to improve upon that as well. But our offensive line, like I said, they're just not athletic enough, and they don't have a mean streak. They don't walk up to the line and say, "Look, I dare you to bring that ball. I dare you to come my way."
Mm-hmm.
You got to have some guys. You got to have an offensive line that has that defensive mentality that I'm going to kick your ass today.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that fire. I just don't see that fire in the offensive line. So
it's interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned that because and help me out here, correct me. Back in the day, and may he rest in peace, the greatest running back of all time, the great Walter Payton, number 34. We can remember some of the linemen when he got here in Chicago, who he was running behind, whether it's a Reeve Sori or a Noah Buddha Jackson, or Dan Jiggets. I mean, and they weren't the greatest. They weren't, greatest all-pro linemen. Dennis Lick. I mean, but when they got lined up, it was, hey man, grit on grit, and you knew win or lose, you were in a dogfight. You were in a dogfight with the Chicago Bears, and we've seen the likes of Jimbo Colbert and Wally Hilgenberg. Oh, we've seen them. But I said Wally Hilgenberg. But the point I'm trying to get across is that this offensive line that we're experiencing this season, they don't even come close to those lines that we've seen in the past as far as Chicago offensive linemen are concerned for the Bears. They don't even come close to that.
Guys, there's another thing in play. November 3rd, 3 p.m. is the trade deadline. So maybe they could get some help there. I mean, there are teams like Houston, even that's 1-5. They have receivers that might trade. It might not be a bad move to try to beef up the line and get some more receivers. I mean, that's another thought.
Do you see that happening? And let's say, I know there are a couple linemen that were on the docket, and I think other teams, I think Buffalo Bills were looking at someone. But do you think that's possible that the Bears? First of all, I don't think that they can find somebody off the scrap heap that's going to be, respectful enough to come in here, because they signed guys who don't even deserve the contract, and commend them for getting the contract, but they're not good enough. They're simply collectively as a bunch aren't good enough to get the job done. But do you trust Ryan Pace to make decisions to try to bring in some type of help for this offense? Bruce?
Well, I tell you this much. Ryan Pace is all we have right now. So, you have to trust him. You have to trust him to make the right decisions. Although, we've got a number of players on our team right now that you question his ability to do that. But if the Bears are trying to get to the playoffs, trying to win more than one game in the playoffs, they're going to have to do something with the offensive line. And we've got what do we have? A day and a half left, 2 days left before the end of the trade deadline. Into the trade deadline, and some teams that look at some teams that have no chance of going to the playoffs this year, but they've got a rock solid one or two offensive players. Offensive linemen.
Right.
That we should be talking to them, but you know what? At this point, I don't think the Bears are willing to give up any draft picks at this point because they over the last 2 or 3 years, man, they haven't had a whole lot of draft picks.
Yeah,
I think that's something that's hurting this team right now offensively.
We're on with Bruce Heron, former linebacker for the Chicago Bears, played back in 78 to 82 with the beloved.
Yes.
Yeah, number 51 in your program, number 1 in our hearts. It's interesting because the one thing I do like about this Bears football team, and obviously we're seeing it on the defensive side of the ball, is the fact that I truly believe they do have a lot of heart. I think they have a lot of fire. I think they have a lot of desire, and they want to prevail. Unfortunately, Bruce, when does it come to a point, because there are 3 phases of the game that we talk about, and this Santos guy is doing a heck of a job. He's doing a heck of a job. Yeah. And Eddie Pinheiro, who is our kicker, he may be looking for a new home. But from a teammate's perspective, and from a player's perspective, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, when you see yourself out there busting your ass every Sunday, every Thursday, whatever you're out there, and then you see this mediocre performance on the offensive side of the ball, when does this begin to wear on you and you say, hey, man, this isn't working. We're getting our ass kicked out here. We're trying to keep you in the game, but you guys aren't performing. When does that ever sink into the locker room? Because I know this team and Matt Nagy and the organization, they try to keep it away from the public and from the media. But as a player on the inside, when does this thing start to somewhat crack and possibly unravel?
Well, I don't think it's going to unravel any more than it already is. What I think that needs to happen is our defense has got to come together and say, listen, our offense has some struggles. Let's go out. We have to go out here and win this game ourselves. We have to cause turnovers. We have to intercept balls, and we have to put it in the end zone. Let's not depend on our offense to do it. Let's go take care of business ourselves. Let's win this thing ourselves. And that's the attitude these guys have got to have. I know when I played, one of the things that Buddy always screamed at us, and we always had a top 5 defense, even when I was playing for Buddy. But Buddy's mentality, and he drove it. He instilled that in us. He drove it in our minds every damn day in practice. About, listen, damn it, I don't want to come up with it. I don't want to hear anybody's excuses about what the offense is doing and what they're not doing. Go out there and let's win this damn thing ourselves. Win the damn thing yourself. And that was the mentality, man. I mean, we just went out and we played our ass off. We didn't always have the best talent, but I tell you what, Buddy was a gamer, man. He came up with all kinds of defenses to throw offenses off and put us in position to where we would have a chance to win. We didn't have the fastest linebackers. I was the fastest linebacker on the team at the time. Then we got Otis Wilson. Of course, Otis was, big and strong and fast.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to Otis, I was the only guy that had some speed.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't say that the other guys couldn't play. Of course, they could play. We all had things about us that was pro material and that was beneficial to being a good linebacker or a good player. But the thing about it is that Buddy took whatever he had to deal with, and he put us in a position to win. And that's one of the things that I complain about with the current Bears defense.
Bruce Heron,
I don't think they're always in the best position to showcase their talent.
Bruce Heron, join us on our TR60 hotline. Hey, that brings up an interesting point, an interesting perspective. Do you think the Bears, well, defensively, they haven't really lost much. They got Chuck Pagano, who took over for Vic Fangio, and like you said, the defense they're playing lights out. It was addressed after the disappointing loss to the Rams last week. It was addressed the question was asked to Matt Nagy, should he relinquish or turn over the play calling? And he said in so many words, no, we're all responsible, and we're going to continue to do what we're going to do. Do you think it's a mistake for him to continue to call plays for the Bears?
Who, Matt Nagy?
Yes.
Well, you know, I know Matt Nagy's first year here. I mean, he brought with him an offense that we were not accustomed to. They moved the ball around, put the ball in the playmakers' hands, and did a lot of things that being a Chicago Bear, the fans here, we were just not accustomed to. And last year and this year it's even worse. I mean, there's something missing, and part of what's missing is play calling. I mean, our play calling is just not where it needs to be.
It's pedestrian.
Yeah, it is, man. And I think a lot of it has to do with us having a quarterback that is not mobile. Nick Foles he's just not a mobile quarterback, and when he gets pressured and he throws the ball, he's throwing the ball off his back foot, and the ball tends to settle on him, or it's underthrown, and
right. But Bruce,
it's one thing after another when you got issues with your offensive line.
You're right, Bruce. But yet you look at other teams. I was watching the early games today. There's people like Roethlisberger aren't very mobile. It looks like they almost have more people playing on offense than we do because they have nobody in the backfield, and they have 3 guys wide out.
Right. They got
crazy.
an offensive line for him.
Right.
And stand back there and pick and choose. Look at Brady. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Brady is not a mobile quarterback at all, but man, I'm telling you. Shoot, Brady can stand in that pocket, man. You stand in that pocket 4 or 5 seconds, man, and pick and choose. Well, I know he's open, but man, he had one last week. Let me take this to my second choice.
You know what? And we're short on time. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. But the problem is, and as men, we all experience this. We all experience it as men, and we all either got a favorite coat or favorite jacket, favorite pair of shoes, or that we don't want to part with. But our mother, our girlfriend, our wife say, "Hey, you got to let it go. You got to let it go." I think Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, they fall in love with what they think they know, and they stick with it, and they don't want anybody to take it away from them. And unfortunately, they're going to have to give it up sooner or later. Hey, man, how are we looking?
Hope it gets windy real quick. They're at our 11.
Hey, oh, geez. Hey, Bruce, they're lining up for a field goal. I understand, man. Hey, thank you so very much for taking time on the fastest hour sports conversation on this Sunday at WCPT, brother. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Hopefully, I don't know, man. Let's just hang in there, brother.
Yeah, I will, man. I will. Hey, thanks for having me. I really enjoy this time with you guys. So I'm looking forward to next week.
We enjoy you too, brother. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, bud. Thanks.
Bruce Herron on our TR60 hotline. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the fastest hour in sports conversation. Thank you to the Marvelous One. Any closing thoughts before we go?
No, how about those Buckeyes?
Buckeyes, how about them?
Yeah, Indiana is the only other team that's 2-0 in the East, and then, of course, Northwestern and Purdue in the West. Go figure.
Let's get ready for the playoffs. Marvelous, thank you so very much. Have a fantastic week. If you miss any of the portion of this broadcast, check us out on Facebook. Comcast Access on Wednesday, Channel 17, Channel 19, Channel 35 at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. The Bears lose to the New Orleans Saints in overtime, 26-23. Thanks to Devin Tingle, our producer. Folks, have a great rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the week. Go out and vote. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Take care, everybody.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast by yours truly, Jerry Riles. And, of course, we're joined by the Honorable Dr. Chadwick Prodromus. Dr. Chadwick Prodromus is the President, Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers. Doc, how are you?
I'm great, Jerry. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm just looking forward to an exciting weekend, of course, with Halloween and being socially distanced, but taking care of the little rascals coming to and from the house with some treats. And of course, I'll take care of myself as well. But also, we got a big week in store coming up as far as the country is concerned. That obviously the election to determine who's going to be in control of this beautiful land that we call the United States of America for the next 4 years or so. So there's a lot of docket, and I tell you, You could be torn which way, any different direction. If there was an alien that would come down right now and just took a look at what was going on in the great United States of America, man, that alien would get the heck out of here, because from the elections to the pandemic to the violence in the urban cities around the country to the firestorms out west or hurricanes, in the south and the east of this country, there's a lot going on, but we got a lot in store. As far as the world of sports is concerned, congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers for winning their 7th World Series title, the first in 32 years. 1988, the last time the Dodgers were able to bring home the brass, and congratulations to Dave Roberts and his team. They did a fantastic job in a strike-shortened season, 60 games, of course, that obviously due to the pandemic, but congratulations. Doc, I don't know about you, but I was really, really surprised. As Buster Olney said of ESPN, he thought it was 5% chance that the season would get started, 0% chance that the season would crown a World Series champion. He was certainly wrong. Were you surprised that we were able to get through this whole 60-game schedule and get a World Series title?
No, week after week. There's just a lot of overly fearful misinformation. All these teams should get through all their sports. They just have to be prepared to be a little flexible, maybe cancel some games here and there if it comes to that. But no, these guys are young, healthy people. The mortality rate is close to 0 in general for that population. You get it, you get sick. Some of them don't even get sick. You move on. I wasn't surprised in the least.
It's interesting. Part of me, maybe it's the human side of me, but I was surprised, and I was happy, but surprised. I'm also surprised at the National Football League, Doc. Week 8, we're already halfway through the season, and week 8, and we're still playing games. Of course, the cases continuously go up, and teams are hit with it, but I'm just surprised and pleasantly surprised that the National Football League is still playing football Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and, with a few adjustments here on Tuesday nights. But you're saying, and you've been saying it all along for the past few weeks, that you're not really alarmed with the cases, whether it be on the professional ranks or the collegiate ranks. And we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about a high school, but collegiately, Trevor Lawrence, the starting quarterback for the Clemson Tigers, tested positive a couple of days ago. He's going to miss 10. He's got a quarantine days or so. Important because Clemson will be taking on Notre Dame in about a week or so, and they're trying to see if he's going to be ready for that. I think a couple other players tested positive as well. We saw what happened with the Wisconsin Badgers, Doc, after beating Illinois up in Madison. Their starting quarterback was tested positive, and along with other teammates. I'm still surprised. I'm shocked, but you have a different perspective, and you've shared that in our past podcast. For those who may not be familiar or aware with your perspective on how to handle the COVID and sports, share with us.
Sure, and I'll mention again, as I did last week, to all our listeners, I would strongly encourage you to look up something called the Great Barrington Declaration. By the way, that's Barrington, Massachusetts, not Illinois. It doesn't matter. Depending upon, there's still too much politics in this whole thing. Hopefully that ends next week one way or another. But depending upon your persuasion, some people might look at this in horror, some people not. But this was something that was created by some super smart people, Stanford, Harvard, and Oxford, epidemiologists. These are not hacks. These are some of the smartest people in the world. And their basic theory is you let young people get it because nobody dies. I mean, maybe there will be a case here or there, God forbid, but the mortality rate is essentially 0. Nobody dies. You build up herd immunity. And the herd immunity built up in the younger population protects the older population. And that's just what ought to happen, because as people don't exactly realize, everybody's got to get it, or a lot of people have to get it. Either you get an infection or you get a vaccine. We don't know how well the vaccine's going to work. But the lockdown strategy doesn't work. It's counterproductive. It creates sickness. It creates death. It creates suicide. It just doesn't work. So, the corollary to the Barrington Declaration, let young people get it, is protect the high risk. And that's doable. But trying to lock down the young people is highly destructive. And actually, it's kind of interesting. You brought up Trevor Lawrence and the SEC. And, the evolution of this was that the SEC was on board to play to begin with. And Pac-12, whatever it is, 12, was the first to say forget about it. The Big Ten said forget about it. And then they both came back. But still, their policies, the SEC, I guess, is a 10-day quarantine. That's reasonable because essentially nobody's contagious after 10 days. The Big Ten still has a 21-day quarantine. And look, everybody's trying to protect everybody. It's well-intended, but it's not a good policy. And there have been articles. There was a good article in the Journal of the American Medical Association and elsewhere that said this needs to be changed. The reason that it's 21 days is that there were reports early on that there were heart problems. And, from Penn State, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, too, where a doctor from Penn State said that a lot of the people had heart problems and everybody got worried, but it turns out they don't. And, this virus has been so scrutinized that people are seeing danger when none exists. Not to digress, but it relates to our own research with hydroxychloroquine, where a drug that has been used safely for 60 years with no heart problems was suddenly declared by the FDA to be heart dangerous. So we did a huge study, published it, read around the world that shows that isn't true. Well, it's the same with this. If you look hard enough, you could kind of magnify problems. But the bottom line is that now cardiologists are saying that heart problems with COVID-19 in this population are very rare. So there is no reason to, some doctors saying don't cardiac screen at all. And I think that's probably true unless you have symptoms. So the 21-day thing, unfortunately, Wisconsin, not only they're starting, but their backup quarterback is tested positive. Right. So, and it's a 21-day quarantine, and it just shouldn't be. It should be changed. I mean, I give the Big Ten credit for coming back at all. Whether they're going to be able to change their policy, I don't know, but they should. And again, follow the science, follow the experts. There just is no reason to have that long a quarantine. Again, contagion-wise, that wasn't the reason to do it to begin with, because originally they said 14 days. Well, 10's enough. But the 21 was because of fears of cardiac disease that turn out to be unfounded. So, I hope they'll change that policy. But the only people that I worry about, as I've mentioned before, I worry about the morbidly obese. And the only place you find morbidly obese athletes in the United States, sumo wrestlers, accepted, which we don't have, are some football linemen. You have some in the NFL, you have some in college. And the one unfortunate person who passed from COVID in California was listed at 6'3", 355. I mentioned that before as well. So I think let people get the disease. They're all going to be safe. But as I've mentioned before here, I think the old and the high risk should be protected. I think the young who are morbidly obese should be protected as well. That's the one group that gives me pause, and you see that here and there in football. Hardly ever in high school, here and there in college, a little more in the pros. But except for those people, they should be allowed to play. Not only are they not at risk, and obviously people that have other comorbidities, if you are very sick with something else too, don't play. But not only are they not at risk, but they protect the country. When these programs get cases and the whole team gets it, and everybody does well, this protects the rest of the country. It enhances herd immunity. Now, let me say something else to you. And I know herd immunity is also, like too many other things, has got to be politicized, right? But herd immunity coupled with focused protection. Now, one other thing, I don't want to go on too long here, but that I've seen is that there's been a lot in the news, or some in the news, about how long do antibodies last. And maybe antibodies don't last that long, and maybe you can get the disease again. But real important area is with cellular immunity, and that has nothing to do with antibodies. So to say that antibodies diminish has very little to do with getting it again, because it doesn't mention cellular immunity. And is it possible to be reinfected? Yes, and this has occurred a few times, and it's been severe, but it's still rare, and in the low risk groups is really nothing to be afraid of.
Doc, there's a lot to dive into, and that's what we love the Sports Medicine Update, the weekly podcast, because there's so much information that you provide us. There's so much insight that's useful and definitely helpful. But on the contrary, there's some information that some people say, hey, wait a minute, what is this doctor talking about? He must be off his rocker. We just had and condolences go out to his family. And the school and the classmates, but an 18-year-old freshman, I think, from Naperville, attended Dayton University, went away to school in August, no symptoms, no signs, nothing, a pure specimen of health, and he tested positive and started getting symptoms, and he came home and quarantined the whole 9 yards, and unfortunately, he succumbed. He had cardiac arrest, heart attack, and he died, and it's attributed to COVID. And it's only one individual, and we don't want to lose any individuals, but he's a young kid, 18 years of age. His mom said he was healthy as an ox, as they say, and he died of COVID. So when you look at that case, and I know it's one case, but there are people out there to say, we didn't want that to happen, and we don't want that to happen, so we're not going to put our young people in a position that it could happen again, whether it's on the collegiate ranks or in the high school ranks. How do you combat that?
My heart goes out to the family, and you can have the discussion: did the person die from COVID or with COVID? And perhaps there were no other comorbidities. People die every year, significant number. From cardiomyopathies, from going back to Len Bias and whatever I'll kind of remember from out of the blue, and it happens, and so the issue is the cure going to be worse than the disease? And keeping these kids away from sports puts them in greater harm's way elsewhere. If you look at the overall numbers, though, the percent of people who will die with COVID in this population approaches zero. And having one person die with it is just not a reason to create a policy that creates death, that creates disease in the whole population. And it isn't as though, is one death too many? Yes, it is. But it isn't as though we have an answer. Locking people down and keeping them away of sports makes things worse. It's just not the answer.
Well, unfortunately, the numbers, and we talk about the cases compared to the actual, illness and the medical side of it. But over the past week, for sure, the past couple to 3 weeks, the numbers across the board around the country, I believe in at least 37 states, Doctor, they have gone up. The cases have gone up, and hospitalization has increased. The number of people or patients on ventilators have increased just in a matter of 10, 14, 21 days. So, yeah, it's out there. And I think the other argument that some people are presenting, Doc, is the fact that, when you make a comparison of people dying every day and, people dying automobile accidents or whatever the case may be, the experts and the scientists are saying when you look at the numbers and when COVID arrived here in the United States, and we're documented it back in March, you're looking over like a 7-month period, and you've got nearly basically 250,000 people who have died in a short period of time. And I think those are the numbers that are alarming people. And that's why a lot of people are fighting, i.e. our governor here in the state of Illinois, and J.B. Pritzker, saying we don't want to put the young kids in jeopardy. We don't want any more issues because we're already above the top as far as this pandemic and trying to protect people.
Yeah, it's a specious argument. The young people aren't in jeopardy. They're just not. The young people are the people that protect the rest of the country. What you're doing is you're putting the country in jeopardy.